Hi, this is Dan Eisenberg again with another episode. I think this is the 13th episode of Scale App Podcast. 13th on Friday the 13th. Sounds like good luck to me. And remember, I bring you Scale App Podcast totally free. And the purpose is to give you examples and ideas and thoughts about how you can grow your business. Scale apps, we don't have startups on this podcast. We have companies that have broken at least $5 million and whose main challenge is how they get to be 5, 10 times bigger than they are today. And I'm really excited to bring today to the podcast a company disclosure. I've been an investor. I think I invested twice pretty early on in Sunbit, and that's the company Sunbit. So and I'm here with Arad Levertov and Tal Riesenfeld, whom I've known for all that time. Actually, Tal I've known sooner. Another full disclosure, don't blame him for it, but he was in my class at Harvard Business School probably about 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And that's how I know him. So here we go. So just Arad and Tal in any order. Tell us, and let's, and just briefly, who are you as people?
I will start. I'm Arad, and I will actually disclose that Tal and I grew up together in a small town in Israel. I'm here in Los Angeles, moved to the US about 17 years ago, and have a family, my wife Dana and our 4 kids. And about 10 years ago, we decided to start Sunbit, which we're going to talk to you about it today.
Okay, any hobbies or Sunbit doesn't allow you to have hobbies?
I do actually, what I like to do is to go for runs without my cell phone, without any watch, just to clear my mind at the beach, sometimes barefoot, and also plunge into the ocean, which keeps me refreshed and young, which is that's what I like to do on my free time.
My listeners can't see you, but you look young. I think that's probably because of you and not because when I look at myself, I look old. But Tal, who is Tal Riesenfeld?
So first of all, I'll start with the hobbies. I have no hobbies, but I've never worked a day in my life, right? So everything I do is fun. I'm playing a game and enjoying it. Grew up in Israel, as Arad said, with Arad. Moved to the US to get my MBA, then that's where we met, and started a company out of business school. That was my first company in video advertising, built a sales organization there, and then moved with Arad at that time from New York to Los Angeles, and currently I'm the chief revenue officer for Sunbit. On the personal side, married, 3 daughters, live in LA, and having a lot of fun.
So the 3 of us together have 11 kids. I think that's a football team.
No, that's true. It is. Yeah.
So now let's do the same for Sunbit. Short version, and maybe you give slightly different versions. What is Sunbit?
Yes, I will start and probably Tal have his own direction, but Sunbit is fintech for real life. We help merchants to help their customers to get the service or the goods that they need right now and pay over time. And then we continue relationship with customers and give them all more products. We have 2 products. One of them is what we call today Buy Now, Pay Later. That basically is being offered in in nearly 30,000 locations. And already served more than 4 million customers. And the second product is a credit card that is being offered either to our customers as a cross-sell or with partnership with merchant as a co-branded card. I would say two more sentences that we focus on the customer. We care about the customers. We do not charge any fees. We don't mislead the customer. Actually, many of our buy now, pay later loans are 0% for the customers, not any cost to the customer, because we are making our cost from the merchant. And we are super proud the way we treat our customers with the high net promoter scores in the high 80s, great Google reviews, and in general, great relationship with customers and merchants.
Wonderful. Tal, I know you're talking about the same thing. You know each other so well, but can you give a slightly different version of what Sunbit is?
I think, in the US, when you pay for your college tuition, when you buy a car, when you buy something big, you can finance it. You can split it into payments. But we identified a hole in the market. What happens then if your car breaks down? It's $1,000. What happens if you go to the dentist and it costs, a root canal? And for many Americans, that is expensive. And the ability to split that into monthly payments, in Hebrew we say tashlumim, right? To split it into monthly payments makes a lot of sense. And it didn't exist in the US. We focus predominantly on brick and mortar. So not online, but we don't sell Gucci bags and Pelotons. We focus on that non-discretionary, and we found an amazing opportunity in the market, and we've been growing it.
So I want to. By the way, one of my problems talking about Sunbit in a relatively short period of time, I tell my listeners, turn on Scale Up podcasts when you get in the car to go to the supermarket, and you'll be done by the time you get back. And I try to stick with that. And one of my problems with Sunbit is, for me, it's like a smorgasbord. There are just so many interesting things about it. But so I looked just a few minutes ago. I looked at BNPL, Buy Now Pay Later, and I did a search and I said, who are the main players? And they didn't mention Sunbit. And then I said, well, what about Sunbit? And it said it was an AI platform. And then they said, oh, yes, Sunbit. And it's very different from all the BNPL players. So give us some clarity. Are you not? And if you're different, can you sharpen the difference for us?
I'll jump into it, and from another direction. When we started the company and we identified the opportunity and we started meeting investors, and some investors said, guys, the technology, it's great, the product is great, but why don't you go online? Online scales easy and it's so vast. And we said, yes, we know that. And we know it's easy to integrate online, but guess what? There's a lot of players that are competing in that space, and becomes a competition for pricing. Now, brick and mortar is harder. It's harder to go to the dentist. It's harder to go to the dealerships, to the vet. It's harder to partner with brick and mortar, but guess what? That's where most of the purchases happen.
You mean as a financial services provider, it's harder for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct. It's not, I don't put a JavaScript on, website.com and generate transactions. There's a store component, there's a retail component, but that is the more interesting problem. That is the bigger market and the harder one. So I think in that case, those companies that you saw online, and they're great companies, and they're very large, but they're focusing on e-commerce, which is, again, great market. We went in the other direction. We're focusing on day-to-day purchases, on real-life purchases, on co-branded card with retailers that and in that, and I'll say one more thing about that. We do not invest in marketing our brand. We're not building our brand in front of the customer as much. We partner with the retailers and they do that for us. So when you go to that retailer, he or she will tell you about Sunbit. And so we don't spend as much on advertising.
So this is unique, and it's an interesting strategy. Say a little bit more about the benefits that you provide to the retailers or the merchants, because I think that's one of the things that helped you basically dominate the post-sales dealerships in the automotive industry in the retail automotive in the United States, right?
In general, if I'm a retailer, I spend a lot of money on getting the customer to my store, to my service, that's what we do as a retailer. Once the customer is in there, I'm trying to sell him something or solve a problem. And that's where we come in, because, you pay for the customer's in the store, but the treatment costs $2,000, and that's a lot of money for a lot of Americans. Our product then helps that customer split it into monthly payments. All customers get 0% APR options, and we're helping the merchant sell more. In return, the merchant is introducing us to the customer for free, and because I paid no customer acquisition, I can give great terms for the customer, right? So we've got that motion where we're helping the retailer sell more, we're helping the customers buy what they need. We're in the middle as the technology layer, But because we don't have the costs of customer acquisition, we're able to approve customer, give them great terms, no late fees, and all that good stuff. So it's a technology layer in the middle.
Now you started, and okay, Rod, just jump in if
I would just say what Tal that just touched. It's actually part of our mission, and we started Sunbit before the name Buy Now Pay Later was famous, right? I mean, it's but the idea is instead of going direct to the consumer and spending a lot of money to acquiring customer, like many of the credit card companies are doing. I worked in a company that did it. We said, let's partner with the customer, with the merchant, and get the customer for free, as Tal mentioned. And our mission is really to, we call it, eliminate financial waste, all this waste that's spending on marketing cost, and pass the savings back to the people. And once you do it, passing it by lower rates and great terms, by doing it, we get the customers, and then we expand the relationship with the customer by providing them more products. In our case, is a credit card that they can buy anywhere, not only the merchant of fixing the car, but they can buy online. They can put on the auto pay for Uber or something else. So Buy Now Pay Later, it is one of the products that we write. This is our way to get into the market. Not only today, we actually also partners with merchants, with retailers, and providing their customers core branded card. But then we work with the customer. We promise the customer to give every customer a better rate compared to what she has in her own wallet, because we have this approach and we use a lot of technology, sophisticated technology, to give each customer the best rate and to continue the relationship with the customer.
and it's fast. You have a high approval rate, and it's transparent, right? They know exactly. There's no this mumbo jumbo voodoo of how do you understand how much I'm going to actually pay for my. Right.
Yeah, no, I would say in one more sentence about this. This is our North Star. We don't mislead. We don't take shortcuts. We know that we probably leave some money on the table. We could have done like some tricks that the customer wouldn't pay attention, but no, we focus on the long-term relationship with the customer, to be transparent and to give the customer the best rate that she can get.
So another thing that really stood out in my mind early on as we were having conversations 8 or 9 years ago, I think, was that you were extraordinarily focused on, initially, on a particular market segment. I remember Tal talking to you, it was so focused that in the United States said, well, I know somebody in Puerto Rico. Nope, it's the United States. And I know somebody in another kind of, nope, we're focused only on automotive. Well, talk about that decision for several years only focusing.
I'll jump into that. Then the biggest enemy of an entrepreneur when you've got a good product is a sack of money, right? The sack of money, come over here, come over there, that confuses us. We've stayed very focused. We grew vertical by vertical by vertical. We, again, in the car dealership space, for example, we have 55% market share. What does that mean? Most of the dealerships in the US offer Sunbit. So if you go to fix your car, I have my friends always text me, oh, Tal, I went to the dealership. I saw it. Dan, you probably did it a while ago.
Yeah, I did.
It did. And again, it's not random. It's most of the dealerships have it. So when we go into a vertical, we go into win. And, we kind of won on the first vertical, went to the second, went to the third, went to the fourth, and really kept the focus. And focus is, like Steve Jobs says, focus is about saying no, right? So focus is about saying no. And that means that this opportunity here that might look interesting, that we could solve many other opportunities, now's not the time.
So how did you know? Because I think you're describing it a little more, you're collapsing time a little bit, because you said no, and then you went to your second vertical. It wasn't like 1, then 2, then 3. It was 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then 2 and 3. So how did you know it was that one? And then how did you stay on that for such a long period of time relative to what other startups should do?
So then you might find this offensive. I know you were a professor at business school.
Certainly. I raised 4 kids. I'm used to hearing everything.
So I'm going to say, all these, theories of you do market research and you do surveys and you do this and you do that. I believe the only way to really open a new vertical is to put a seller with a commission on it, right? Somebody who tries to sell and falls on his or her face in the beginning. And we did that. So the first vertical, the first few markets, that was me. I was the seller with no commission, but I was the guy trying to sell the product. And that's how we found kind of the first vertical. And then
more, but say more about that. So how did you know? It's like love at first sight. It wasn't exactly, but because this was your focus for several years, I think.
So I think no sounds differently. There's different no's. There's no get out of here, you're wasting my time. There's no it looks expensive. There's no I like it, but who else is using it? And so there's different versions of no, and there's yes, of course. And I think, it's almost kind of, when do you know? It's once you're starting to get traction. And in the beginning, everybody says no because you don't have that reference customer, right? So in the beginning, by definition, they'll say no. And we can tell a lot of stories about that. But at a certain point, you start getting traction. You get the first customer, the second customer, the third merchant, the fourth merchant, and, the fifth one now. And you start getting traction. And then, you get the pricing in place, you get the value proposition in place, and then you start scaling it. So I there's no is it 10 merchants? Is it 20? Is it 30? It depends. But I think once you're able to, and for me, another kind of key attribute is when somebody else decides me is able to sell it, right? That's a good indication that you have some maturity. It's not the founder with, that knows everything and has the background. It's other people are able to sell it. So that for me is indicative.
Was one of your considerations that you could, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it would seem to me that one of your considerations in staying with the automotive dealerships was it wasn't very sexy, and you could maybe fly under the radar a little bit in terms of your competition. Is that just my own hallucination, or is that real? Go ahead, Arad.
Not necessarily. I think that we found a great product market fit in auto dealership. You should remember that we are still a startup at that time that still losing money. And when you're a startup, you need to keep growing, and especially a startup that does lending, and you need not only money to run the operation, you also need some money to the lending before you have great credit facilities and great bank partnerships that we have right now. And we knew that we found a product market fit. It is working. Let's show some traction for the next 12 months that we have money, show that it's proven, and then go raise money and then go to the next vertical, which, by the way, when we looked at the second vertical, which is in healthcare and specifically in dental, we identified the same success point that we had in the first vertical, which is, for example, this is a transaction that is between a few hundreds to a few $1,000s. It's not too cheap, but it's not super, super expensive. There is some relationship on repeat usage between the customers or the patient in the care of the dental and the service provider, which means they would come back, they want to treat each other well. We like to call it, and you mentioned the competition that goes to do online, we like to call our verticals as non-Amazonable, which means our grandkids we still go to the dentist to treatment, and they cannot do it online. And we developed the muscle of actually selling into the brick and mortar, which is super, super hard. And but once you do it, it creates a lot of moat to do. And the last thing I will say, in both cases, the margin of the merchant is high, especially after the merchant spend all the money to get the customer into the door. And that's what Tal mentioned. So we identified, and we like to say at Sunbit that there are over $300 million, I think $330 million Americans, and most of them drive cars and many of them have teeth. So there is a lot of opportunity. And once we get the customer, remember, we have the second product for the credit card, so they can use anywhere. So even though we're right now looking at different verticals, testing new things, we remained heavily focused on what we do, because many people can give you advice. You can do this, you can do that. This is such a great product. And then you need to take a deep breath, don't forget to listen, but 90% of the cases, it doesn't move the needle, and focus on your gut feeling of what you need to do and do it right.
Now, just another characteristic that seems to me is important here is that so far the verticals that you've gone into and dominated, I mean, you're at the point now where I think a car dealership that doesn't have Sunbit has to explain to their management why they don't. This was IBM's position all along. Why don't you have IBM? Why don't you have Sunbit? But it seems to me that there's a common characteristic, and that is the customer goes in. It's a several hundred or maybe a few $1,000 expense. It's not plannable. Your car breaks, and you have to do it. Your tooth breaks. You need a crown. It's not like you say, well, I'll come back next year and do a crown. And the third, at least for the automotive industry and services, I'm not sure about dental. I think there's a great possibility for upselling or cross-selling rather in the car, because you can say, well, as long as you're doing this, I think you're going to need your brakes in another month. Would you like to do your brakes as well, as long as we're at it fixing your wheel bearings? And I think you facilitate that kind of financial freedom on the parts of the customer, but also give new revenues to your merchants, it would seem to me. I don't think you disagree necessarily with anything, but I do want to, so before we go on to the sort of next set of questions, could you just give us the Sunbit by the numbers and as much as you can say about, let's say, revenues, profits, and sort of the hardcore business numbers?
Yeah, so first of all, we are active in, as I said, nearly 30,000 locations across the nation. We have over 4 million loans on the buy now pay later, and over 200,000 credit card customers on the credit card. We're actually doing every month, we're adding more than 120 new customers to the systems and growing. We crossed the $300 million in revenue run rate. And I'm happy to say that we have been GAAP profitable over the last couple of quarters, which is super hard because remember, we also borrow money from lenders, and we pay them based on the call it Fed interest rate plus a spread. And over the last 2-3 years, when the Fed interest rate went from 0 to nearly 5, our cost of capital significantly increased, but still we're able to keep growing. We're growing like 30 to 40% year over year over the last couple of years, and also achieve profitability. So that's where we are. We believe, as you mentioned, you ask about, we believe we should be 5 to 10x bigger than this, because as I said, there are many people that needs the service, and I believe that every time a customer uses Sunbit, this customer in a better shape compared to any other alternative she has.
So that touches on sort of how you're going to get to 10 times bigger. And I'd like to hear a little bit about your thoughts, how you're going to 10x this company. And along the way, if you could also comment a little bit on what you see your superpowers are. What are Sunbit's, let's say, organizational and strategic superpowers that are going to help you scale up significantly?
I'll take the growth question. There are many opportunities to meet the customer where they need help. We talked about dental and auto and vet and med spa, and there's all these services that currently today have the same problem. So, we're taking these verticals one after the other in different ways, either with a direct sales team, with inbound and online sellers. We integrate our technology into other vertical SaaS platforms so we can scale in that way. Again, Arad said it, we're partnering with the retailers and offering a co-branded card. That's a whole new market and a whole set of retailers. So when we look at the market between kind of different ways of car repair, healthcare, different services, different brick and mortar stores that say things, the market is massive. It's just lining them up in the right priority and investing in the right place. And I love what you said, Dan, before. I'll jump to it for a second, where you said, if you're a dealership and you don't have Sunbit, you're in a deficit. that takes focus to get to that situation, right? We could have been in 20 verticals and had 5% of each, or 10, the math. So I think there's a ton of opportunity, and we're scaling, in different ways. And we do think that we'll get to the opportunity where we can meet every American when they are in that point where they need help or looking for credit or want to sign up for a new credit card. So that's a scale strategy in a symbol, man.
So I have noticed, both on your website and also as an investor, a shareholder, that you in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, have embarked on a variety of different kinds of partnerships, whether it's on the debt side, partnerships with different warehouse facilities, or whether it's on the card side, co-branding with the Nollies, or Stripe, for example. And I'm just wondering how you see partnerships fitting in your scale, let's say, ambitions. And is that a superpower, your ability to form these partnerships?
I'll say two things. When Arad says that we grow every year 30 to 40%, that means every year we need to grow more, right? So that's how the math works. So we can keep growing. I have about 50 sellers on the team. We can keep growing by adding more sellers, and we are. But these partnerships, they offer you scale. They take longer time to sign. They take longer time to launch. Sometimes the margins are lower because there's a partner in the picture. We understand that, but they offer you scale. So our ability to, and we do these partnerships both in verticals where we play direct, like dealerships and dental, you just named it, and in verticals where we don't play direct. And that is one of our strengths, is our ability to, when you look at a market surrounded from all angles, and partnerships is a very cost-effective and efficient way to scale. Again, margins might look a bit different, but it gives you the scale game. So that is something we've developed over the years, complementary our direct strategy with partnerships.
I'm gonna touch the superpowers, and I think it all starts. If I ask you more, what our superpowers are, is actually our values and the way we start. I mean, the focus on the customer. I mean, the values, it serve others before self. It's not about me and Tal, or not even our investors. It's to serve the customers well. And we know that in order to serve the customers well, we need to be profitable eventually, because if not, we're just gonna fail. The other thing that we understand is, because we went is this contrarian strategy of going into physical location, into brick and mortar. We need to run 3 different companies in one company. One is the fintech, with finance. We need to make sure that the loans are working well. The other one, of course, is technology, which should be good. And the third is the retail. And the technology basically connect it all together. But we also do not afraid to connect in person, to meet. We have people that are meeting people in the stores. Of course, that we do it with the most sophisticated technology, AI, and data that look in the entire system to make sure it is efficient. But we like to do it, and one of the values is innovate for good. We do a lot of innovation, but again, not to increase the revenue and charge more fees for the customers, but actually to be more efficient, so we can actually save more money for the consumers, and then the customer love it and take it and recommend it to her friends, and call the friends that is retailers, and does it. Like, the last thing I would say in this case, there are no shortcuts. There is no superpower, you do like this and you make it. This is a lot of hard work, a lot of learning, a lot of criticism in what we do, and try to understand that what worked yesterday would not necessarily work tomorrow. We just talked about partnerships. The key for us and the challenge is to get everything we learn when selling direct to the merchants and implement it into partnerships. But we know it and we work on it, and we know will take us to the next level.
So one of the things that impresses me also, but I think it also raises an issue, is your ability to create win-win-win relationships. It's the merchant, it's the partner, now that you have partners, and it's the consumer. And we're talking about consumers who are probably at least initially, not highest up on the income level, but people who have trouble making the $1,000 payment for their teeth or for their car right away initially. No, is that wrong, Tal?
That's not right. It's a different buy now, pay later. You go online, you do buy now, pay later. 30% of our loans are with 0% APR. Then you and I should take them. So that, because the technology is fast, because it's easy, when you go to your dealerships, you come with your T-shirt. They don't know what's in your pocket, right? So because it's so fast and easy, we cater to the whole population.
Okay, and that was always true in the life cycle.
Yeah.
So my question is, given what you just said and also what's going on in the world, there's a huge amount of, and things today are not the same as they were a year ago. There's a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty. People are worried if things continue on the current path, at least in the United States, there's going to be a lot of unemployment and possibly unemployment shifting, moving from one sector to another. Is this going to drive your business, or is this going to make your business harder?
I'll say two things about Sunbit. First of all, then Sunbit is a company that does well in a good economy and does well in a not so good economy, right? We're mostly non-discretionary. We're helping people. We're doing it transparently with great rates. So if people need more help, again, we're happy to help them. So that's one thing. Fundamentally, we're not cyclical. We don't go up and down. It's just, and we've been doing this for a long time. The underwriting might change. We might need to make some decisions to be responsible. But we've done well throughout the 10 years, through COVID, through high interest environment, through low interest environment. Again, as long as you focus on helping people with things they need, right, which is what we're selling. It's not Dan wants a Gucci bag and I'm going to help him buy it. Then we do well regardless.
It's not the famous Barbie dolls that our president tells us we can buy 2 instead of 20. You're talking about things that people really need. Well, look, we're getting into the checkout line for our readers, and I want to get a last question in before they get home and have to unpack the groceries. And that is, you're both in your mid-40s. Is that approximately right? I wish I were in my mid-40s again. As you look back, and let's say that you ran into your younger selves. I mean, Arad, you run into Arad, and Tal, you run into Tal, not each other. Let's say 10 years younger, 15 years younger self. What would you tell? And you wanted to start a company. What would you tell yourself? Tal, let's start with you.
I'll jump in. Everything takes longer than you think it will. The good ideas, the success, the scale, you've got a good idea. You're saying we're going to be up and running in a quarter and take over the market. It takes 2 quarters. It takes 3 quarters. Everything. And again, the success, I'm not talking about that not successful ideas. I'm talking about the successful initiatives. Everything takes more time to do it the right way. Again, you need to do it aggressively and jump at it, but just a bit more patient and understanding that good things take time.
Arad.
I would, in addition to what Tal said, I would say that ask yourself why you want to start a company. I mean, there are a lot of people want to be entrepreneur just to have this title on their either LinkedIn or something, but have a real mission. And when you have a real mission, when you identify the real mission, we are connected to this real mission, go all in, because that's the only way to maybe succeed. That's my again, no shortcuts, all in, bold, hard. Understand that it takes time, and then you have a chance to succeed. Without it, it may be small successful, but it's not going to be successful. However, if you do it, you're going to, as Tal started the conversation, you're not going to work. You're just going to enjoy your day to day.
That's wonderful. We've come to the end of our 13th episode of Scale App Podcast. This is Dan Eisenberg. Again, I want to thank Tal Riesenfeld and Arad Levertov for, first of all, for creating Sunbit. And then second of all, for spending some of your time and very valuable time with me here and with us here. So thank you both very much. I will just end saying Scale App Podcast. It's for all you out there that that really have this burning desire to grow something significant, first of all, from a business perspective, and then hopefully, in order to do that, of course, you have to really address customer needs. We know that. So this is for you. If you like it, share it. And we'll see you all on the 14th, or at least not, we'll hear you all. You'll hear me on the 14th episode. This is a lot of fun. By the way, one of my plans is to, when I get to 20 episodes, transcribe everything, throw it into an AI engine, say, what have we learned, and then share that with all of you. So thank you all very much for being with us. And again, thank you, the Sunbit team, Tal and Arad Levertov and Riesenfeld. Okay?
Thank you so much.